Smart enough to win. That's how the story starts. Learning is the edge that sets your work apart. When the stakes get high and the pressure never stops, smart learning in your pocket puts your business at the top.
Welcome to the Learning Advantage, from Insight to Impact, where we're going to show how smart learning fuels real business results. I'm Deb Laurel, and I'm your host. So I welcome you today to our session. For 40 years, Laurel and Associates has worked alongside national and international managers to help them successfully manage employees and create and maintain a positive, healthy, and supportive work environment where employees want to stay and do their best. We focus on making lackluster leaders legendary. The purpose of the Learning Advantage, from Insight to Impact, is to discuss how smart learning fuels real business results. In each episode, we strive to deliver actionable strategies, evidence-based design tips, and real-world case studies that show how learning strengthens organizational health, advances sustainability, and drives profitability. And for that reason, I'm delighted to introduce our guest for today, Buckley Brinkman. Most recently, Buckley served as Executive Director and CEO of the Wisconsin Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Leading the organization from June 2011 to December 2025, he brought more than 25 years of transformational manufacturing leadership to the Wisconsin Manufacturing Extension Partnership, with a breadth of experience in helping companies drive growth, world-class competitiveness, and performance excellence. Experienced in Lean Six Sigma, supply chain management, and turnaround planning, he led efforts to save dozens of operations in the U.S. by finding new ways for them to compete. Throughout his career, Buckley has provided executive leadership to companies ranging from $5 million to more than $4 billion in sales. He revived the North American operations of the world's largest playing card company, led the turnaround of a prominent trade bindery, and catalyzed the profitable turnaround of a recycled paperboard mill. I'm sorry, got to turn the page over. Buckley is an industry thought leader who has authored several white papers on innovation, corporate culture, business strategy, and other topics. He served as president and chief operating officer of the U.S. Musical Corporation, an Illinois-based musical instrument manufacturer, as chief operating officer of Minneapolis-based Manchester Companies, where he received the Turnaround of the Year award for his work with a medical device manufacturer, and as president of Vallon LLC, a Minneapolis-based interim executive placement firm. Most recently, he served as executive director and CEO. A Wisconsin native, Buckley holds a business degree from the University of Wisconsin and an MBA from the Harvard Business School. So after all of that, I'm tired.
That's a lot of reading, Deb.
That's a lot of reading. That's a lot of life, Buckley. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, before we start, I'd be really remiss if I didn't thank the prime learner in our family, which is my mom, because it's her 92nd birthday today. So happy birthday, Mom.
Oh, happy birthday. That's wonderful. So we're going to get right into the questions.
All right.
When you think about learning as a competitive advantage, what does that mean in the context of your work?
Yeah. Well, most of my career has been helping manufacturers either survive or really reach their full potential. And I've always been curious, but it's been especially important when working in this field for two reasons. One, you're always trying to find the next new thing. And in manufacturing, it's really critical if you want to stay competitive that you're always figuring out how to upgrade and how to meet that next challenge in the environment. And then the other thing is just how all the pieces fit together. So one of the marvels in modern industry is just watching a factory work and how many things have to go exactly right for that raw material to go in one end and have a product come out the other end. So learning about those things and really driving deep on the critical factors has been essential to succeed.
Can you share a specific example where a learning initiative moved from insight to real impact and how you measured that impact?
Yeah, as you can expect, there have been many of them, but I'll pick a recent one. We started the Wisconsin Manufacturing Report 5 years ago, and 4 years ago, we started asking about artificial intelligence or AI. And what we noticed in that very first report was that 72% of the manufacturers that we talked to said, don't like AI, don't want AI, it's not going to affect my business, and just keep it away from me. And we immediately said that is a problem because we just saw how much it could leverage resources that are available. And the biggest threat that we face is just a lack of workers right now. And so the productivity side of this and the capabilities there were just astounding. And it was amazing that manufacturers were saying, we're not going to do anything with it. So we immediately jumped into action. I mean, one of the things that we did was put together a video series up front that not only explained the basics of AI, but then also gave examples from various parts of the state of manufacturers that were actually using it in their operation to improve what they were doing day to day. And so we went from that 72%, God, keep this away from me, to where over 2/3 of manufacturers now say that AI is an important part of their technology stack. So there's one example out of many for you.
Oh, that's a great example. What do you see as the biggest barrier preventing organizations from fully embracing lifelong learning, and how do you think we can overcome it?
Yeah, I think that the biggest factor in almost any time we want to change, right, is inertia. I mean, change for you is great. Change for me, not so much. I mean, generally the only change we like is the stuff we find in the sofa cushions or in the bottom of a vending machine. But I think, especially in this time, it's really important that we're leaning into this and that we're really exploring what's next and looking at how that affects you either personally or professionally. And especially in this time right now where technology continues to accelerate, if you aren't constantly leaning in and aren't constantly looking at what's next, you're going to be left behind. And, you and I had a conversation before, 20 years ago it was social media, right? If you weren't learning about social media and how it was going to change the interaction with your customers, the interaction just with the internet, you were putting yourself at a disadvantage. And that will just continue to happen as we move forward and as technology continues to evolve.
So people have really got to be open to change.
Right. Well, and the other factor here is that, when psychologists study our motivation, and the two prime motivators are fear and greed, right? But fear has it all over greed. If you want to get somebody to do something, make them afraid, as opposed to saying, okay, this is how this will benefit you. So it's really incumbent on each of us to look and say, okay, how do I really want to improve, and how can this improve my life, as opposed to waiting for when it's a disaster and you actually have to change in a crisis situation.
But there are certainly a lot of people who wait for that.
Oh yeah, I've dealt with many of them, and it's not a good environment because you don't do your best thinking when you're trying to fight fires or you're dealing with a major crisis that consumes all of your creative thought. So it's best to be anticipating and seeing where might we be going next?
When you did that turnaround, there must have been some inertia you had to get past.
Yes, and it's almost easier, Deb, to do a turnaround than it is to do an operation that's in steady state. Because in a turnaround, there's a general recognition that we're in trouble. And so if you can get focus on, look, your paycheck is at risk here, and what we're trying to do is to make sure that this company has cash flow so that it can pay you, so that it can serve our customers, and that we move back into a healthier spot in the economy. So from a motivation standpoint, turnarounds, as long as you can get focused on what the critical issues are, can be a lot easier to motivate people than when everything's going okay.
Good point. Good point. How are you leveraging data, technology, or new learning methods to create more personalized and effective learning for you?
Well, I think one of the things that I've really jumped into over the last 4 or 5 years has been AI. And one of the things that's been really interesting to me in the last year has just been the conversations that I've been able to have with the agents. And not that the agent is going to have the answer, or that they're going to be right all the time. But what it does is it serves as a listening partner that can really give you feedback from where you are and the data that you've given them, and also from how the model has been trained. So 3 weeks ago or so, I was looking at a new opportunity and got into about a 45-minute discussion with Claude. And it really helped me think through the various facets of the opportunity and what I might want to do and how that might impact the end results. Now, in about 45 minutes, Claude had taken the germ of an idea into a $700,000 opportunity, which was unrealistic. But it really helped me think through step by step what needed to happen in order to get that particular opportunity back on firm footing. So using AI agents has been a big part of learning going forward for me.
Right. If you could give one piece of advice to leaders who want to build a true culture of continuous learning, what would it be?
Well, I think what we're all the time facing in an organization is, are you in a virtuous circle or are you in a death spiral? You're in one or the other. You're not just hanging out in the atmosphere and staying the same. And the key to building a virtuous circle is to make sure that you're constantly learning what's happening in your organization, that you really have the engagement of the people around and are willing to accept different perspectives so that you can see all sides of the problem and aren't just always coming at it from your perspective. And you'll get better buy-in as well. And it's important in those sessions, everybody's got an opinion, right? What's really important is that there are really clear goals that everybody's aimed at. And they have to be hard goals. They have to be goals that you can put a measure with, because I get frustrated when people say, well, we're going to build a healthy environment here and make sure that everybody's happy to work here. That's frustrating to me. That's important, but it's a byproduct of doing the right thing, having some success, and really being focused on results. Because I find that winning teams are a lot happier than losing teams, and so building that virtuous circle where we can come together and bring different pieces of the puzzle into difficult situations and come out with something that we're unified, that this is the direction that we're going, is really critical to the whole path. And I think a lot of times, there's an old saying, in God we trust, all others bring data. So generally, when I'm in those meetings or leading those meetings, it's okay. That's great. What data do you have to support that? And then figuring out how all those pieces of data come together. So it's relying on the data. It's making sure that you have clear goals, and it's that you're building this community where you really have the psychological safety to say what's on your mind, as opposed to holding back a little bit.
That whole issue of innovation, when there isn't psychological safety, people are afraid to make mistakes, so they don't come across with new ideas.
Yeah, or when you're not able to bring your whole self to work. If I'm not able to be Buckley in one of the most important places that I am every day, then that's leaving a piece of me behind, and a piece of potential, and it sets up, gets you on that death spiral, because now I'm thinking about something else other than what the team's goal is.
What's one book, resource, or learning experience that has had a lasting impact on you personally?
So probably the book that's had the most impact on me recently is a countercultural title, which is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Flip. It's if you can get past the profanity, it has a really good message to it, which is there's only a limited number of things that we can pay attention to in life and really give our attention and give our genuine care to. So be careful with what you do, what you pick, and as your world gets wider, the selection gets bigger. So you have to be even more careful with that. The reverse example of that is one they give in the book, which is, the 75-year-old lady who's sitting in the grocery line fighting tooth and nail over her coupons being accepted by the store. If that's one of the most important things in your life, yeah, you're going to have a pretty big argument over it. But is it something that you want to lose a lot of sleep with, or sleep over, or really cause a lot of tension around? Yeah, probably not. There are probably a list of items that you can go down, and I think it's it really sticks a pin into a lot of myths and a lot of things that lead us astray sometimes. Like if you're chasing happiness, so it's a totally righteous goal to be happy in your life. But if you're chasing that to the exclusion of everything else, you're going to make bad decisions, and you're going to find yourself in a place that maybe you don't want to be, unless you have limited resources and unlimitedly tolerant spouses and important people in your life. So.
Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I think one of the things that I get on my high horse about, and I think it affects learning as well, is that when we talk about meetings and just the amount of time that's wasted in meetings, right? And what bugs me to no end is when you call me into a meeting and there are, pick any number of people around the table, and now you're giving me information that you could have sent in an email, you could have done a short video, you could have sent me the links in advance. You don't need 6 of us in a room to communicate that. That's more for your convenience than mine. What you really want in that room is where people are collaborating and have all the facts. They've done their homework up front, and now we can collectively solve an issue and engage each other. And I think that happens all the time in meetings. You and I have both seen that. And I think it can really happen around education right now. If you're just trying to be the sage on the stage, that those days have passed, unless you're one of the 1%. Where you can be really valuable is pointing people in directions to bring information to a discussion that then, the Socratic method can take over, where we're teaching each other. And that ends up being a lot more effective in most cases. So I would really encourage people to really look at their meetings and say, are you cramming 10 minutes worth of content into an hour? And how can you really make use of that valuable time of people around the table to get something done?
That's a bugaboo for me as well. And teaching meeting management, particularly, unless you're going to pull people together to brainstorm and come up with a solution, and there's some decision that you're looking for, don't waste people's time.
Well, and if you want to be harsh about it too, don't waste your money. If you start adding up the salaries or the hourly rate of everybody around that table, meetings get really expensive really fast. And if you think about that as an investment, and if you had to write a check for that, specifically for that meeting, would you write the check? And most of the time, a frightening number of times, the answer is no, I wouldn't.
That's a very good perspective. I hadn't thought about that. All right. Anything else?
That's it, Deb.
You're this font of wisdom. You're sure?
I've been called a lot of things. That's the first time I've been called that, but thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, thank you, Buckley. How can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm at Buckley Brinkman, and then you can reach me on X at @pbuckley, or you can reach me by email at pbuckleyb@icloud.com.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. It was a great conversation. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And thank you, our listeners, for listening in and participating in the conversation. I hope you learned as much as I've learned from this session. Join us next week on May 5th as we meet with Melissa S. Medrano, a director of talent and HR business partner with nearly 2 decades of experience across talent acquisition, talent management, and HR business partnering, including more than 10 years in-house supporting biotech and life sciences organizations. And please remember that what we've been talking about involves having managers work cooperatively and collaboratively with their trainers. And if you're not sure that they're doing a good job, if you don't feel that your managers or your trainers are likely as effective as they could be, please contact me. I have an assessment that would be useful for you. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Learning Advantage from Insight to Impact. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Every lesson, every workshop, every failed attempt you save becomes a map upon the desktop, shows the road you've craved.
So